So for the pilot coexistence, and before I go through this line, the one thing I want to do is just take a step back into functional verification. And it was touched on a little earlier today, but I think it's pretty important and it's significant, so I'm going to take a second to talk about it. So functional verification, what that means is, especially when you're coming from Notes and GroupWise, make sure that you test Microsoft Online, that you test Exchange, that you test Outlook, and that it's right and it feels like it should, and you get the functionality that you expect and that it works in your environment. You have Notes users, let's say. They may be used to collaborating in a certain way. Make sure that from a functionality perspective that the Outlook experience will work for your requirements that you have. And if it doesn't and you need to readjust those requirements, try to understand what that means and how that impacts the migration or the experience overall. Okay, so for setting up mail coexistence, I'm going to go through this a little fast because it was discussed a little earlier today. Mail routing is determined by forwarders. Again, you have mailboxes on both sides. One will be active, will forward out to the one that's not. So as people get migrated over, they'll be able to receive mail. And more importantly, they'll be able to fully collaborate whichever platform they're on. The other thing to note is that there are different tools out there to do the Notes and the GroupWise migrations, depending on what tools you use. If you use a third-party vendor tool, the mail forwarding portion of the mailbox can be done through those tools. So that's something to think about as well. Directory coexistence and migration. So with Notes and GroupWise, we're going to migrate to a local Active Directory, and then that process using the Microsoft Directory Sync tool will come in place and synchronize that Active Directory up into Microsoft Online. Clean up Active Directory, ensure account information, and all the SMTPs are accurate before you go ahead and synchronize those over. So the Active Directory looks how you want it to look. And again, the third step is to use the Microsoft Sync tool to bring that up. So here are some known limitations during coexistence, and they're slightly different, but similar. They have a lot of similarity that was discussed earlier today. So no free busy or delegates, just like Exchange. Local forwarding is manual unless you use a third-party tool. No or limited GAL coexistence, and that really just depends on the approach you take. And then this calendar interop, and that really depends on the system that you're migrating from. And this is really geared more towards the Domino type migration. Within Domino and Exchange has some issues trying to coexist on mainly a calendaring type of level. So I don't know how much experience you may have, but just to give you a quick example, if someone's on Domino, someone's on Exchange, and sends a meeting invite to each other, or maybe a recurring type of meeting invite, there's a good chance, or there is a chance, that there may be some breakdown in how that's being translated. I set up a meeting Monday through Friday of next week. That Exchange user receives it. I go and update one of the instances. Well, that may break the pattern for that Exchange user. So that's something to consider as well. And there are third-party tools that can work with the migration up to Microsoft Online to go ahead and resolve those improper translations.